The National News Desk, locally covered, nationally connected.
There have been no murders in D.C. in the last week. That's the first time in anybody's memory that you haven't had a murder in a week.
Just how safe are the streets of D.C. after the federal takeover? And what was behind the morning raid of a one-time Trump White House advisor? Also, tragedy and horror on a New York thruway. What led to a tour bus flipping on its side? And the latest on the casualty numbers that are rising throughout the day.
People shouldn't be hurt, but I'm in support of keeping it totally open. I couldn't care less. You got a lot of people that could be mentioned in those files that don't deserve to be.
The DOJ handing over thousands of Jeffrey Epstein-related documents and releasing a transcript of associate Ghislaine Maxwell. What the trafficking accomplice says about the supposed Epstein list. This is the National News Desk, America's News. Now, I'm Dee Dee Gatton. We begin tonight with tragic news. A mass casualty event outside of Buffalo, New York, as a tour bus turned on its side in an accident on the highway. Here is what we know right now. At least 4 people were killed, including at least 1 child. Multiple others have been taken to the hospital, including at least 2 children in serious condition. According to New York State Police, the driver of the bus lost control of the vehicle and hit a median before running off the road and flipping on its side. Rescue efforts are ongoing. The National News Desk, Carly Miner, is at the scene of the crash.
State police spoke with me around 4 p.m. off camera, saying that this section of the thruway near Pembroke will likely remain closed for the rest of the day. Now, authorities say a tour bus traveling from Niagara Falls to what is believed to be New York City went off the road earlier today for an unknown reason and flipped onto its side. 52 people were on the bus in total, the driver and 51 passengers, according to troopers. We're told there are multiple fatalities and injuries. Several passengers were trapped on the bus after the crash.
There's a lot of rescues. We still have entrapments. We still have people. We don't know their whereabouts. We're assuming that we need that count, the passenger count, so we can count how many injuries we have, how many fatalities, or how many possible entrapments. Like I said, the bus did roll. There were multiple ejections. There are multiple people trapped, and there's multiple fatalities. This includes children as well.
And we do expect an update from state police here anytime, and we will bring that to you live. For now, reporting live in Pembroke, Carly Miner.
And stay with us as we continue to track the developments on this story throughout the night. We'll have coverage for you both on air and online at thenationaldesk.com. President Donald Trump is getting the United States ready for the 2026 FIFA World Cup. The president announcing today the official draw for the 48-team field will be held at the Kennedy Center in December. 11 U.S. cities will join Mexico and Canada for hosting all of the games. Washington, D.C. will not be home to any of the games, but the president mentioned how much safer the district is after the recent increase in security in our nation's capital.
I'm tired of listening to these people say how safe it was before we got here. It was unsafe. It was horrible. And Mayor Bowser better get her act straight or she won't be mayor very long, because we'll take it over with the federal government, run it like it's supposed to be run.
President Trump saying today there have been no homicides in the district in a week. The National News Desk, John Barr, dives into the numbers in our nation's capital.
This is the face of the latest homicide victim in the District of Columbia. Mignon Brown Massey, shot to death in the 3300 block of 15th Street Northeast on Wednesday, August 13th. One of 45 unsolved homicides from this year alone. That's 45 families waiting for justice. But within the past 2 weeks, since the influx of some 2,000 National Guard troops and a surge of federal officers hitting the streets, 6 suspected killers have been cuffed and charged, according to numbers released by the U.S. Marshals Service.
6 homicide arrests in 2 weeks. It doesn't alarm me. It's certainly reasonable and possible. Maybe there have been circumstances that have freed up detectives to focus on the warrants.
Josh Etterheimer, an assistant professor of public safety at the University of Virginia, says it's reasonable to assume the U.S. Attorney's Office, courts, and the U.S. Marshals Service has been working at an accelerated pace since the surge began. But he says it would be a mistake to not also recognize the benefit of thousands more boots on the ground.
This increased National Guard presence and the increased presence of federal officers, just by their sheer numbers and presence, will have an impact on crime. Crime will go down.
Ederheimer, who worked for D.C. police for more than 2 decades, rising to the level of assistant chief, says this level of law enforcement officers during the surge can't be sustained. So he encourages federal and local leaders to work to address the department's long-term staffing needs. For its part, D.C. police says there have been 3 arrests for homicides within the past 2 weeks. It's not clear if those 3 arrests overlap with or are separate from the numbers provided by the U.S. Marshals Service. In Washington, I'm John Barr reporting.
The FBI took multiple boxes from the home and office of an ex-Trump National Security Advisor, John Bolton, after a many hours long search throughout both premises. Look at the scene. This was earlier. The Associated Press reporting the FBI is investigating John Bolton for his handling of classified information. He served during President Trump's first term, but he became critical of Trump later. The former advisor has not been arrested or charged with any crimes. President Trump says he wasn't informed of the FBI search.
No, I don't know about it. I saw it on television this morning. I'm not a fan of John Bolton. I tell Pam and I tell the group, I don't want to know, but just you have to do what you have to do. I don't want to know about it.
Speaking to reporters at a surprise visit to the White House Historical Association, Trump repeats previous criticisms he's lobbed at his former national security advisor that Bolton is, quote, very bad at foreign policy and always wants the U.S. to enter wars. Continuing coverage, the accomplice of convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein says there was no client list or blackmail operation. That's according to the transcript of the interview between Ghislaine Maxwell and Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche. The Justice Department released it today, along with audio. The National News Desk, Christine Frizzau, tells us more.
Included in this release, hours of audio and hundreds of pages. In it, Ghislaine Maxwell continues to deny the role she's now been convicted of playing. She's also asked about some pretty high-profile people. One key question had to do with her interactions with now President Donald Trump.
I actually never saw the president in any type of massage setting. I never witnessed the president in any inappropriate setting in any way. The president was never inappropriate with anybody. In the times that I was with him, he was a gentleman in all respects.
Also questions about his relationship with former President Bill Clinton. She says Clinton was her friend, not Epstein's, and she doesn't believe he ever received a massage. This release, by the way, comes the same day the DOJ turned over redacted records from what's known as the Epstein files to the House Oversight Committee. Committee Chairman James Comer says his members will go through it and make public what they can. I'm Christine Frizzau reporting.
Police say one person is dead and a suspect is in custody after a shooting this morning at a Mississippi shipyard that builds military vessels. The victim was a shipbuilder at Ingalls Shipbuilding, according to its parent company. Ingalls is the largest supplier of Navy surface combatants. The identities of those involved have not been released. The Salvadorian national brought back to the U.S. after being deported is now traveling to Maryland after being let out of a Tennessee jail today. A pause on an order to release Kilmar Abrego Garcia while he awaits trial on human smuggling charges expired today. The Trump administration may try to deport him again. However, a judge ruled they can't take him into custody immediately and he must be placed back under ICE supervision in Maryland. The Texas Senate could vote to approve a new congressional map today, aimed at giving Republicans up to 5 more congressional seats. This is the last step of the Trump-backed redistricting plan before it heads to the governor's desk to be signed into law. California Governor Gavin Newsom signed redistricted maps yesterday, but those maps still need to be approved by voters come November. Louisiana's Attorney General is suing online gaming platform Roblox for allegedly not doing enough to protect children.
I don't think they made a single tip or forwarded a single tip to the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. So other apps do that. Well, we've had some incidents.
Roblox claims it has submitted about 1,200 reports of potential attempts at child exploitation this year. Merrill argues Roblox doesn't have strong enough safety controls to protect young users, exposing them to harmful content and child predators. Roblox says it is using AI to detect early signs of child endangerment. The parole hearing for Lyle Menendez is happening today. A California board is considering whether he deserves to get out of prison over 35 years after he and his brother Eric killed their parents. Eric was denied parole yesterday for 3 years, mainly because of his behavior in prison. Prosecutors say they both have a lack of insight.
If and when the Menendez brothers finally come clean and say that those lies that they've been telling for 35 years are just that, they're lies, then at that point, we believe they'll be qualified for parole.
Lyle's case is similar to Eric's as far as their behavior in prison, except Lyle broke slightly fewer rules. Coming up, the announcements on tariffs and interest rates that help send the Dow to a record high today. Then, driverless taxis are now on the streets of New York City, the next place Waymo is targeting for testing. Then, a Salt Lake City violinist and teacher now in ICE custody. How the music community there is responding. We're back in 90 seconds. Dow Jones Industrial Average on the New York Stock Exchange up almost 2% and nearly 850 points there to 45,631. A lot of factors could be taking part in that jump. We know this morning Canada announced most retaliatory tariffs with the United States will be stopped. We're talking tariffs on cars, aluminum and steel. They remain, but most other goods will see import tariffs return to the numbers stated in the Canada-U.S.-Mexico agreement on September 1st. The markets also seem pleased in the comments by Fed Chairman Jerome Powell, who indicated in a speech in Jackson Hole this morning a willingness to cut rates at the next Fed meeting on September 17th. Still, the chairman insisted any decision the board makes is not being influenced by the president.
Monetary policy is not on a preset course. FOMC members will make these decisions based solely on their assessment of the data and its implications for the economic outlook and the balance of risks.
But when the board does meet next month, one commissioner may not be there as President Trump again urges Lisa Cook to resign as she is facing accusations on mortgage fraud. The president today says if Cook doesn't make the right decision, he will be forced to act himself.
I'll fire her if she doesn't resign. Yeah, what she did was bad, so I'll fire her if she doesn't resign.
And energy prices across the country, they are on the rise. President Trump is blaming renewable energy sources for the increases. Other experts say the reality is more complex. Our national correspondent Kayla Gaskins has that story from Washington.
Electricity prices are climbing nationwide, up more than 5% in the past year alone, according to federal data. The trend is projected to continue into 2026. On Truth Social this week, the president blaming the price hikes on renewable energy. Trump writing, states relying on windmills and solar are seeing record-breaking increases, calling it the scam of the century.
Wind is a disaster. Wind is the most expensive form of energy.
Trump rarely holds back when expressing his views on green energy.
It destroys the beauty of your fields and your plains and your waterways. You'll see some of the ugliest windmills you've ever seen.
Secretary of the Interior Doug Burgum also slamming renewable energy as expensive and unreliable when speaking with the National News Desk Friday morning.
They're not reliable, they're intermittent, they aren't going to work for us to be able to power our country going forward.
We spoke with Larry Behrens from Power the Future.
When you take affordable and reliable energy off the grid and you take it off the table as an option, you're going to see prices spike.
But some experts say renewables are only part of a much larger picture. They point to soaring electricity demand from AI data centers, extreme weather, and the retirement of older fossil fuel plants as major contributors to rising prices. Meanwhile, clean energy advocates note that states like Iowa, Kansas, and Oklahoma, all with high shares of wind power, have seen electricity prices rise more slowly than the national average, showing that renewables can coexist with affordable energy.
On Thursday, the White House announced a new trade investigation into imported wind turbines, a probe that could lead to tariffs, making wind projects even more expensive. In Washington, I'm Kayla Gaskins, reporting for the National News Desk, America's News Now. Hurricane Erin is moving out to sea, but forecasters warn it's still bringing rough waves and flooding to the U.S. coast. The Category 1 storm is packing maximum sustained winds of 90 miles per hour. Dangerous surf and rip currents are expected over the next several days along much of the East Coast. Coastal flooding is also expected during high tide in the Mid-Atlantic and New England. Some roads could be impassable. New tonight, Waymo's autonomous taxis are now in the Big Apple, with the test rides beginning today. The New York Department of Transportation handed out its first permit to allow 8 vehicles to test their services in downtown Manhattan and Brooklyn. The test will go through late September and could be extended beyond the current end date, I should say. Philadelphia is the next city being targeted for testing. More shrimp is being recalled for possible radioactive contamination. The FDA says California-based Southwind Foods is recalling frozen shrimp that may have been exposed to cesium. It was sent to multiple states from July 7th to August 8th. Specific stores were not listed, but the brands include Sandbar, Best Yet, Arctic Shores Seafood Company, Great American Seafood Imports, and First Street. Women across America are getting potentially life-saving information in their mammogram reports. A sweeping federal mandate now requires them to be told whether they have dense breast tissue, which can, of course, increase the risk of cancer. But it's what happens next that matters most, and why one member of Congress is leading the fight to make sure all women get the critical cancer screening they need.
More than 40% of women have dense breast tissue, putting them at an increased risk of cancer. Dense tissue can mask tumors on a mammogram because dense tissue and tumors are both white. It has delayed critical diagnoses in women across America. Density is a known risk factor, but little is known about why.
We've been working on dense breast cancer for about 3 to 4 years now.
Dr. Noelle Cutter is an Ironman triathlete in a class of women, by all accounts, in their prime, fit, healthy, and young, who shouldn't be facing cancer. Yet they were.
And that's actually what started my questioning of this, is why are so many of these women getting diagnosed with breast cancer. So I think that that's been a huge passion of mine, just kind of answering that question.
A question that launched her groundbreaking new research that could change the way women with dense breast cancer are diagnosed and treated. Cutter's lab found that cancer cells in dense breast tissue may actually be resistant to chemotherapy.
When we repeat treat them with chemotherapy, they're not dying. So they're not responding to the treatment. as we might expect.
Dr. Cutter's research will be published in a major medical journal this year.
What's it like to be on the cutting edge of this research?
I never think of it as being on the cutting edge. You just go to work and work hard. And, sometimes we discover some pretty amazing things.
The key, says Cutter, is catching dense breast cancer early with tools like MRI and ultrasound.
They're so portable. They're so effective. They're so affordable. That should be armed in every general practitioner's office.
But in many states, those essential additional screenings aren't covered by insurance.
The insurance has to have full coverage, no cost share to get these additional screenings. And that's what has to happen.
Congresswoman Rosa DeLauro, a cancer survivor herself, is pushing a bipartisan effort for universal insurance coverage of supplemental screenings. Her Find It Early Act was introduced in the last session, but didn't come to a vote.
In order to pass a piece of legislation, you have to have 218 votes. And so that's why I always look at the external pressure on the institution of people, of organizations who care about these things, of putting the pressure on the members of Congress to support the legislation, which then can get past that finish line.
DeLauro says she will persist because with no federal legislation in place, 16 states, including California, Virginia, and Florida, have no laws to mandate coverage for additional screening, and many other states are inconsistent.
What's at stake if we don't fill those gaps?
Well, if we don't fill those gaps, women die. It's very simple. It's very simple.
For Spotlight on America, I'm Lisa Fletcher.
Congresswoman DeLauro is reintroducing the Find It Early Act in the coming weeks. She stressed that the best way for her bill to pass is if the public reaches out to their member of Congress to press for it to move forward. To find out how to contact your member of Congress, go to spotlightinvestigates.com. Coming up, the aggressive steps being taken to stop an insect that's killed over 100 million trees nationwide. We're right back after this. We have reporters all across the country in your neighborhoods covering issues that matter to you. We are taking the pulse of America. We start in Utah, where a violinist was unexpectedly detained by ICE.
Robert Baldwin is a former teacher of John Shin's at the University of Utah and is currently the conductor of both the Salt Lake Symphony and Sinfonia Salt Lake, for which John plays the violin.
He's worked really hard to make an impact and be a part of that community.
He says John also played for the Utah Symphony and is a violin teacher for children. A post made by his wife on Facebook details how John was detained. Quote, "On Monday at 2:30 p.m., I got a call from John. Honey, I don't have much time. I've been arrested by ICE and they're sending me to a detainment center. I reached out to the ICE detention center in Aurora, Colorado, and got confirmation that a man named John Shin from South Korea was being detained there. The local music community now rallying behind him."
pretty in its own way, the emerald ash borer certainly doesn't look that menacing.
Once it shows up in a community, it can't be eradicated. Emerald ash borer is about 99% fatal if it infests trees.
That's Anya Mocha, the Forest Pest and Pathogen Coordinator for Portland Parks and Rec, part of a coordinated effort to keep the EAB away from Portland's tree canopy. And here's how the urban foresters get to that larva. It starts with a pesticide called emamectin benzoate. The crew measures a tree to calculate how much of the chemical it needs, and then they drill small holes around the trunk. Then insert tubes from a dispensing device and let it flow.
What else can you do on the strip that's the same price it was in 1973? A quarter is still a quarter at the Pinball Hall of Fame.
Tim Arnold is the self-proclaimed director of Stuff and Things at the Pinball Hall of Fame across from Mandalay Bay on the south end of the Strip. Think of it as a hands-on interactive nonprofit museum. And Arnold says they have a few simple business rules that seem to be working.
We have not had a downturn in our business because we haven't raised our prices. Our parking lot is full every day because we don't gouge our customers.
Coming up, the secret mission of an unpiloted SpaceX shuttle that just launched into orbit. We'll be right back.
Engines full power and liftoff.
And there you have it. SpaceX has launched an unpiloted shuttle as part of a mission to conduct classified experiments in space. It took off from Cape Canaveral, Florida overnight. It is the 8th flight for the test vehicles known as X-37B. The Space Force says this will test laser communications and safe navigation without GPS. It's not clear how long the mini shuttle will stay in orbit. We'll keep you posted as we learn more. That's going to do it for us for this edition of the National News Desk. Join us again tonight as we look into the redistricting battle happening nationwide and how politicians' opinions on the topic have changed over the years. I'm Dee Dee Gatton here in Washington. Thanks for watching. See you tonight at 10.